All right, let's talk about what happens when the Olympics just completely go off the rails. I want you to forget everything you think you know about high stakes athletic competition, because today we are diving headfirst into the 1904 St. Louis Olympic Marathon.
And I'm not even kidding when I say this is probably the most absurd, most chaotic race ever run. It was just this perfect storm of terrible planning, unbelievable characters, and some, let's just say, questionable science that created a spectacle so wild, it's honestly a miracle anyone even finished.
Okay, so to really get the full picture of this madness, you have to understand the setup. The race organizers in St. Louis basically created the worst possible conditions for a marathon. It's like they were trying to make it a disaster.
First off, the heat. They started the race in the afternoon in blazing 90-degree heat. That's 32 degrees Celsius. Right out of the gate, you just know this is going to be bad. And if the heat wasn't enough, get this. The course was almost entirely on these dusty, unpaved country roads. So every time a runner, or one of the support cars, or even a horse went by, it kicked up these massive clouds of dust. The runners were literally choking on it. So you've got blistering heat and choking dust. You'd think they'd have plenty of water, right? Nope. There were only 2 water stops on the entire course. And this wasn't an accident. The organizers actually wanted to study the effects of purposeful dehydration. Yeah, you heard that right. Turns out the effects are not great. So with that absolute train wreck of a stage set, let's meet our first character. This is the guy who won the race, Frederick Lors. Here's the short version of Lors's big day. At mile 9, he gets a cramp and just quits. So he flags down his manager's car and gets a ride for the next 11 miles. Then, wouldn't you know it, the car breaks down right near the stadium. So he just hops out and jogs the last little bit. And he strolls into the stadium, looking fresh as a daisy, and crosses the finish line first. The crowd goes wild. They think they've got their American champion. I mean, he was waving, posing for pictures. Alice Roosevelt, the president's daughter, was literally about to put the gold medal around his neck. But right before they could, people in the crowd started pointing, saying, "Hey, I saw that guy in a car." When they confronted him, Lors just laughed and said it was all a big joke. Yeah, nobody was laughing. He was disqualified on the spot. So with the cheater out of the way, the actual winner was the next guy to cross the line, an American named Thomas Hicks. And believe me, his story is somehow even crazier. See, Hicks was not doing well. He was fading, big time. So his trainers decided to give him a little pick-me-up. And what was in this early performance enhancer? A lovely mix of strychnine, egg whites, and brandy.
Let's just pause on that first ingredient for a second. Strychnine. It's a potent nerve toxin. It's a pesticide. It is literally rat poison. And his trainers were just feeding it to him mid-race.
And shocker, this didn't exactly work as planned. Hicks started hallucinating and completely collapsed. He was basically dying on the side of the road. But his trainers weren't going to let a little thing like near death get in the way of a gold medal. They picked him up, dragged him to the finish, and kind of shuffled his legs to make it look like he was still running. And for that, he was declared the Olympic champion.
Now, if you think the weirdness stops with the first and second place guys, oh, you are in for a treat. The rest of the runners were a whole different kind of circus.
Let's talk about Felix Carvajal. He was a postman from Cuba who showed up to the starting line in his street clothes, long pants, a heavy shirt, his walking shoes. Some other athlete took pity on him and cut his pants into shorts with a knife right there.
So what does Carvajal do during the race? Well, he stops to chat with people. He detours into an orchard for a snack, eats some rotten apples, gets horrible stomach cramps, and then decides to take a nap. And despite all that, he still came in fourth. And we can't forget Len Tanyan. He was one of the first Black African Olympians, a runner from South Africa. He was actually doing pretty well running barefoot when suddenly he was chased by a pack of stray dogs. They chased him for over a mile, forcing him way, way off the marathon course. Just incredible. So, after all that, the cheating, the poison, the dogs, the naps, what are we supposed to make of all this? What's the legacy of this race? Was this really the ultimate test of endurance? I mean, come on. The winner was basically a puppet being dragged across the finish line after being poisoned. The first guy took a car.
It's hardly the peak of human achievement, you know?
Or maybe, just maybe, this race is famous for exactly what it was, a perfect, hilarious, and frankly terrifying example of how badly things can go. It wasn't just a race, it was a masterpiece of disaster. And it will forever be known as the most absurd race in history.